This is just going to be a video about me talking about how I put my poster together and why I chose to actually do certain things for the poster. To make my poster, I used Adobe Photoshop, and to start with, I inserted the picture of Jake that I wanted. I had a massive selection to choose from, but I chose this one because I thought it was the best one. He's looking directly at the camera, so it's very direct for the audience. Next step was to change the hue and saturation of the image. I wanted my image to be not black and white, but have a slight effect on it that made it sort of a bit darker. So I changed, like I said, the hue and saturation to make it, and it looks black and white on here, but it's not. It's just a little bit off black and white, so there is a slight bit of colour, which I thought was very important and I wanted to keep. The next step was to change the brightness and contrast, and this is why I wanted to keep a little bit of colour, because as you can see now, it's not black and white, but it is sort of a bit dark, and you get a good. It creates a much better effect on the shadows if you do the hue and contrast before, because otherwise it's just sort of bright and you can't really see much. Yeah, so I did the brightness and contrast, and this also made like one side of the face a lot darker because of the shadow that was originally there. I thought this created a really good effect, as I wanted to make this the whole page sort of split, so one side was Rosie's face and one side was Jake's face. Next, I used the history brush on Jake's eyes and mouth, and as you can see from the previous image, it hasn't made a massive difference, but it's just lightened up obviously his eyes and his mouth, because that's where I used it. And I wanted to do this to again keep a bit of colour, because it's a neo-noir film, I didn't want to make it black and white. I wanted to make it sort of dark and quite eerie, but I also wanted to keep that bit of colour for a bit more. I don't know how it was, it's hard to explain, but like I said, when I was analysing the previous things, I thought they needed a little bit more colour, not just black and white. So yeah, I thought I wanted to sort of keep the colour in it. And finally, I used the clone brush on the slight bits of sort of the bottom half of Jake's like chin and also the hair, to really get that line sort of straight. And like again, it hasn't made much of a difference, but it has made the sort of line down the centre of his face a much more straight. Like I've taken out a bit of his hair and stuff. And I used a clone brush because sometimes if you just use a normal brush with a bit of opacity on it, it sometimes doesn't quite work as well. So yeah, I used a clone brush just to get it perfect. Next, I had to do Rosie, and for her I did pretty much exactly the same for Jake. I did the hue and saturation, and then once it was the perfect sort of colour, I then did the brightness and contrast. The only difference I did with this one for Rosie, I did for the history brush, I only did her mouth because I wanted her eyes to be dark, because it helped with the effect I was trying to create, as she was sort of the evil one. So next, as I had them on their own separate layers, I created a new file and copy and pasted each image that I've just edited of Jake and Rosie into this new image, and I got rid of the background layer, so it was, as you can see, like the sort of checkered. I erased around the areas that I didn't want, because originally there was sort of darker bits around sort of Rosie's face, which I want to get rid of. So I used the eraser tool to just sculpt out this shape that you can see here now. I pasted Jake in, and as you can see, it's the same. It creates the same effect. I got rid of the bits that I didn't actually really want. So it created this sort of join in them, and finally, to get what I wanted, I just put the background back in, and it created this image that you can see right here. Next, I wanted to create my character, and the reason I wanted to have me in it was because I wanted to create that sort of love triangle rule of thirds type thing, because I thought with just the two of them it would be a bit well, not boring, but I couldn't sort of talk about and analyse it as much as I would with having this character in. Yeah, so I thought I'd add the femme fatale's boyfriend in just to add that extra element to the poster, and also create that love triangle between the three, so when you see the poster you're not quite sure what's going on. Again, with this one I just did the hue and saturation, but I wanted to make me sort of a lot greyer than the other two, and then create quite a ghosty effect, as you can see in this image. I then added the image that I just edited into the final one of Rosie and Jake, and I changed the opacity on my face a bit to sort of fade me into the background a bit more and make me not stand out as much as the main two characters. I then added in the title. I wanted Unconventional to be in red and the others to be in white, because the other two aren't as sort of key and important, and they're on the black, so they stand out more, and the unconventional is sort of the main word in the title, so I wanted that to stand out in the red, and obviously red symbolising blood, death, etc., which is sort of an element within our film. I played around with the title a bit, but I thought having it at the top was a lot better in a way, because it stood out a bit more, as if it was at the bottom it sort of cut off Jake and Rosie's faces, which I didn't really want, but at the top it seemed sort of the best place to have it. It's not too clear on the video, but as you can see at the bottom, I used a gradient tool to get that sort of shadow that came up, and this is because before I put it in, it was quite light, so if I was to have the small print and stuff at the bottom, it wouldn't quite stand out as much as, well, obviously you don't want it to stand out, but you wouldn't really be able to read it because it's too light. So yeah, having this gradient shadow sort of effect at the bottom not only lets you be able to see the small print, but also I think it creates quite a good effect on their faces, sort of quite dark and gloomy, which I think really worked well with the genre. Finally, I just used the text tool to insert the text at the top, the actors' names, and I also used an alignment tool which made it so I could see exactly how straight the names were, whether they were sort of just above each other, so I could get it dead straight, which made the poster look a lot more professional. After that, I used the text tool again to add in the small print at the bottom. The small print, very important for a poster, because it's one of the things you always find on posters, no matter what film genre it is. It's always there at the bottom, which lets you know a bit more about the producers and distributors, etc. So I thought that it was really important to have this at the bottom, where it usually is. I then added in the Dark Knight Productions website at the bottom, which is typical for a poster, and I also had the slogan, "Truth was in his heart, tragedy was on her mind." And I'm just going to explain a bit why I did it this way. I put truth was in his heart on her side, so it links him to her, and also tragedy was on her mind on his side, because I thought the connotations sort of linked the two together, having his emotions, as it were, on her bit of the poster and vice versa. I also had heart and tragedy in red, because they were the two words that stood out the most for me, and I had them in this little black centre bit in between the two images to sort of create a link between them, the two again. Tragedy obviously and heart being sort of key aspects of sort of love and death, etc. So I thought having it between the two would be a really sort of good effect that stood out on the poster, and also having the heart and tragedy in red, it makes the two words stand out, and also on the black background it again makes it stand out and look I don't know, it just makes it have a lot better quality, as it were. And also if you do look into it, you'd notice that the his and the her on different sides does create sort of a mixture and a whirlwind, sort of, which also links well to the storyline, because the storyline is quite intense and confusing. And then, so after all that, this is what my final poster looked like. And I'm going to get some feedback on it and see if there's anything that people like and don't like, and if there is, I'll give it a quick sort of change, or a big change depending on what they feel. And yeah, that's it.